You want to retire. You've paid your dues. You have a brokerage or investment account. You have a 401k, a 403b, maybe an IRA. You probably have a tax guy and an insurance guy, and of course your banker. So who do you have that coordinates it all? You? Well, this is how your parents did it. This is how most people do it. This is following by example. This way is hard. Sometimes it feels like the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. They all seem to have an agenda. Each year, the insurance guy thinks you need more insurance. Your broker's always trying to get more money. And your CPA is more transactional. And off you go until next year when you start this whole process over. Folks, it doesn't have to be this way. Let everybody else spin their wheels trying to coordinate all the aspects of retirement on their own. Let them lose sleep at night, wondering if they're making irreversible mistakes. Mistakes that affect retirement dollars for the next 30 or 40 years. Let them have 6 different appointments with 6 different opinions on what you should do with your money, meanwhile pushing their own agenda. Let them wonder who's right and who's just trying to make a dollar. Let them. There is good news. You can forget all that stuff. You can have the retirement you dream of without all the stress. A plan that always puts your best interest first. You will be confident all your needs will be met. You'll have enough money to travel and time to spend with your family. You'll feel secure, heard, understood, accomplished, and in control. This works if you're nearing retirement or already retired. Education is a big part of relieving the stress of retirement planning. We've all heard over the years about so many different income strategies, like the 4% rule or annuities or bonds. And compound the problem, the HSBC did a study called The Future of Retirement, which said those with a financial plan accumulated, are you ready for this? 250% more retirement savings than those without a plan. Studies like this spark the fear of missing out, which starts the whole planning process over again. Cue the fatigue. So what exactly is planning fatigue? It's the exhaustion from trying to find the best path. The underlying problem is the inability to trust someone with their life and their future. When we first started, we started with Medicare. That very quickly was not enough for the people we were seeing. They had real concerns. They needed real help. Over the years, we've added to our offerings and our practice, finally creating the perfect model. The plan is called our retirement roadmap. What is a retirement roadmap exactly? It's a plan that coordinates all the financial aspects of retirement in one working plan that clearly defines your goals and the steps necessary to accomplish them. In short, this is a one-stop shop for coordinating retirement while not having all your eggs in one basket. They're simply on the same farm.
Hi, I'm Jim Redder. I'm a retirement specialist. If you compare what I do to the medical field, I wouldn't be a general practitioner. If you went to see your general practitioner, he has an obligation to send you to a specialist, not to treat you if necessary. It's the Hippocratic Oath that all doctors take because, frankly, it's a matter of life or death. As a specialist, I too have a similar obligation by law. I have to put your interests first, before mine or before the companies I represent. This differs from the medical field slightly because general practitioners of the finance world won't or don't recommend you to a specialist. That means money out of their pocket. So they try to handle that themselves. Frankly, this is why we do what we do. We've seen too many times that people have been taken advantage of. Elaine Dalton once said, if you want to make a difference in the world, you must be different than the world. And we are. We've established a proven track record and a financial plan that you can count on. It took years of research and tweaking, and I can't wait to share this with you. But before we go any further, you might be feeling nervous about that imminent sales pitch. You've been waiting for this because that's what you've experienced with everyone else. An attempt to sell you something. Not here. I promise that I will not try to sell you anything or pressure you in any way. In fact, if you feel this is a waste of your time, we'll send you a free guide on do-it-yourself retirement planning. But I have to tell you, no one has ever taken us up on that offer, because you will see that we're a game changer for your financial future.
Back to the problem. Fatigue. There's also sales fatigue. It's taking place all around us. No soliciting signs on entire neighborhoods, not just one house. Many investors were leery and skepticism grew towards advisors after the whole Bernie Madoff thing. You know the saying, a few bad apples. Sales planning fatigue is the resulting in indecision. In fact, the need for planning is at an all-time high, and yet the industry as a whole is declining. According to the AARP, there's a shortfall of $4.3 trillion between Social Security dollars and the income needed in retirement for current retirees. Income needs to be made up somehow, yet half of Americans in or near retirement don't have a plan. The industry is declining because people don't know who to trust. Simple as that. A study in 2013 by Vanguard Spectrum supports this. A study of 3,000 investors with a net worth from $100,000 to $25 million were asked to rank the main traits that they value most when choosing a financial advisor. You ready? The results. Number 1 is trustworthiness and honesty. Number 2 is transparency and keeps me informed. And number 3 is a good, solid investment track record. Another part of the problem for us good guys is we're not allowed by the SEC to give names of clients that can share their experiences with you. Did you know you're 4 times more likely to choose me based on a recommendation from someone, even a stranger? Their good experience makes you feel like you would have one too. That's why we all pay attention to reviews on restaurants and hotels. Here's an interesting fact. Wells Fargo did a study in 2014. About half of the people they asked personal finances was the hardest thing to talk about with others. People are more likely to talk about their sex life than their finances, even when they're pleased with the financial advisor or their plan. This makes it very hard to get a good recommendation. On top of that, a Harris poll stated 71% of Americans are scared of the bill or the cost of having a financial advisor. Almost none of them knew what, if any, the charge was to work with a financial advisor. The process we built operates around the core idea that all retirement pieces must fit together to make a perfect plan that you can depend on. Our process is the retirement roadmap. Our first goal is to create a one-stop shop retirement resource. This immediately reduces planning fatigue. No more needing appointments with 5 different people to coordinate your retirement. Here, the right hand always knows what the left hand is doing. After years of working with CPAs, estate and elder law attorneys, we're able to create a map of retirement. What I'm about to show you isn't hype, or it's not an investing theory. We fine-tuned exactly what was necessary and what was over the top to create a holistic plan that could be applied to each individual situation. In other words, our process creates an entire plan for retirement without you having to do any heavy lifting. Stressful interviews, maddening amount of times with appointments, and sleepless nights. I'll always be upfront and honest. I didn't come up with all of these pieces on my own. Like a sunken treasure, they were waiting to be discovered. The ability to coordinate both spouse income with adequate survivorship, including Social Security, Medicare, factoring the IRS, and with other investment income, it isn't for the faint of heart. This is expert level planning when done properly. That's just the income planning part of our 5-point retirement roadmap. Number 1 is income planning. 2 is tax planning and inflation planning. Number 3 is investments. Number 4 is healthcare planning. And number 5 is your legacy plan. You may have realized those 5 components are the critical 5. Income planning isn't just about making sure you have enough money to pay your bills, although that's very important. This will come together a little bit better when I show you how all the pieces fit together. But $1 of ordinary income over a certain threshold can change your tax brackets, which can change how your Social Security is taxed, which can change how your Medicare is priced. The ripple effect continues. Let's assume that we have an individual married and filing jointly. As a husband and wife, they have $24,000 in Social Security income and a $22,000 pension. There's a threshold in place that states that a married couple filing jointly with over $44,000 of income will be subject to up to 85% of their Social Security becoming taxable. Now remember, for every dollar you take from an IRA or a 401k, and please remember, Uncle Sam's going to make you take money out of that account. If you're over the threshold, another 85 cents of your Social Security has now become taxable. That's turned a $1 withdrawal into $1.85 of taxable income. If you were blessed to be in a 28 bracket, think about what the tax would be on that. You would pay 51 cents tax on that $1 withdrawal. How do you like a 51% effective tax bracket? You see, tax planning is like the glue that makes all this work. Oftentimes, taxes is having a CPA prepare your tax return. There's often very little advice or recommendation for savings because that isn't what they were hired for. Think about the real tax system. Let's do a quick case study to see if we can help understand these numbers. We have a married couple, older than 65 years old, filing jointly on their taxes. They have $50,000 of combined Social Security income, along with $15,000 of long-term capital gains. They also have $25,000 of required minimum distributions. Let's assume that we also need $60,000 in after-tax or spendable income. But here's what happens with their actual tax map. Numbers seem pretty straightforward, don't they? You can see that once they harvest a little over $10,000 in ordinary income, they automatically begin to experience an 18.5% effective marginal tax bracket. This is the point that their ordinary income plus their capital gains drags enough Social Security into this calculation to begin making every additional dollar withdrawn from the IRA taxable at 10%. And each additional dollar that drags another 85 cents of Social Security into the mix creates an effective marginal rate of 18.5%. You can see this couple never really experiences the 10 or the 15% bracket. They go from 18.5 to 27.75, all the way up to 55.5% before dropping back down to 30% and into their regular brackets. Has your CPA ever sat down and gone into this depth of planning with you? This is the importance of working with a professional who will look at all aspects of retirement planning to optimize your picture. This is important. If you hear nothing else, hear this. The retirement red zone is the 5 years prior and post-retirement that we term are your most critical years. Let me show you why you can't lose money in the retirement red zone. How many have ever heard the term sequence risk? Most have never heard this terminology, but sequence risk is the greatest risk that we potentially carry as we move through retirement. Let's use an example, and I'll show you how this works. Let's assume an individual at 60 years old has made it. They've had $1 million in assets, and now they're going to pull the trigger on retirement. They're going to use a $50,000 withdrawal each year from their account. They're even going to factor in a 3% cost of living adjustment. What we'll do is we'll analyze this individual over the next 30 years of their life two ways. We'll expose them to a 10% loss, a 5% loss, and a 0% gain 3 years in a row. The difference is, in the first example, we'll expose them to that loss right out of the gate. We're then going to give them 27 years of a 7.5% rate of return. In our second example, we're going to give them that return for the first 27 years, then expose them to subpar performance for the final 3. What happens over time? In our first example, with 3 years of subpar performance, followed by 27 years of a 7.5% rate of return, that individual wakes up at 81 years old, broke. He's gone through $1 million in savings in 21 years. What do you think his probability for success is at 81 with no money? We compare this to having subpar performance on the tail end of his journey. And when we review that, this individual passes away at 90 years old and leaves his family $800,000. Which example would you rather be? If you hear nothing else, the retirement red zone, these 5 years prior and post-retirement, are critical years. When you experience a decline early in retirement, you will have wished you would have created pension-like income instead of relying on your investments. Guaranteed versus non-guaranteed. Healthcare. Who do you even talk about with your healthcare options? This is yet another person to find. Long-term care has almost as many stigmas as we do. Planning for Medicare closely relates to your income needs. You must factor rate increases and in return income increases to this equation. Again, having this under one roof makes all this possible. Let's look at long-term care options. I'll show you one that I bet you've never heard of. This is called an asset leveraging plan. We can take dollars in an asset leveraging position and allow those dollars to do something more for you and, more importantly, for your family. I'm sure we will uncover many things you didn't know existed. Remember, we're functioning on an expert level here. The asset leveraging plan assumes a female at 60 years old, and it's based on insurability. So we know right now we're using a type of insurance. In our example, we'll utilize $50,000 in assets coming from maybe a money market or a CD account or even savings. That $50,000 for a 60-year-old female will provide $4,000 a month of tax-free long-term care benefit for a 6-year time period. So we've taken $50,000 and turned it into $228,000 of tax-free long-term care benefit. But what happens if they never use the long-term care? We've also created, with $50,000, a $95,000 tax-free death benefit for their beneficiaries. Someone will use this money no matter what. But wait, what if they just want their money back after a few years? Or at any time? They can have 100% return of their premium for any reason whatsoever with no penalties. That is an asset leveraging plan. And again, remember, we're functioning at an expert level here. Finally, the fifth component, and often the most underutilized aspect of retirement planning, is legacy planning. If you have assets over $100,000, you need a legacy plan. If you have children, you need a legacy plan. If you don't want the IRS to get your money instead of your family, you need a legacy plan. Quick story of what a legacy plan can do for your family. John Behrens is a 36-year-old father of two. His father was a meter reader in California. John received a call one day that his dad had unexpectedly passed away, and John was the sole beneficiary of his father's $500,000 IRA. John later found out that the IRS was going to tax the IRA at $240,000. That's right, nearly half. All because there was no legacy plan in place. Now let's use the same family as if they did have a plan. John, you see, would inherit the IRA. That's very important. It would now, as an inherited IRA, be taxed differently. You see, John would still be required to take distributions, much like required minimum distributions, but they're based on his life expectancy. He would take out about 2% each year, or about $10,000, but that leaves $490,000 in the account to continue to grow. If he did nothing else, this account over his lifetime would be worth about $3 million. Don't you agree that's significantly more impressive than the $260,000 he was left with before? Now, what if we get into expert level planning? Now that John is in control of the IRA, he can use the power of disclaiming a portion of the funds to his children, which also assists in taxation. They would have to take distributions, just like John has. But let's say each child gets $100,000. They take their distributions, the account stays in place and grows. Einstein's eighth wonder of the world kicks in, which is the power of compounding interest. That original $500,000 IRA would be worth more than $8 million over the lifespan of John Barron and his two children. We have software that beta tests this. It shows these numbers in person. This is the difference in expert level planning. Remember earlier, we said people with financial advisors accumulate 250% more assets than those who don't have an advisor. This is a great example of that in action. To optimize your position like others, up to 250% with a holistic plan that you understand and can depend on, you have a couple of options. Number one, you can take the few tidbits that I've given you here today and try to put this entire puzzle together on your own without any assistance from us. But you may be able to figure out with lots of trial and error over the next few years all by yourself. Or you can take a shortcut. Get the puzzle already assembled for you and feel immediate relief. Most people feel more assured about their retirement future after our first meeting, even before we create their retirement roadmap. If you meet our criteria, I invite you to apply for a 15-minute strategy phone call. I work with three types of clients: married couples looking for an entire retirement plan. Number two, business owners looking to optimize 401k platforms, personal finance, and employee education. And number three, individuals needing a plan. Here's how the process works. We will create a retirement plan you can trust and eliminate planning fatigue. All pieces of the plan will fit perfectly together for the retirement of your dreams. Strategy calls take about 15 minutes. This call is to make sure we're the right fit for each other to work together. This saves us lots of time. If we determine we're a good fit together, we'll schedule a follow-up visit at my office. If you are 55 to 68 years old, have investable assets, don't want to try to tackle this alone, if you believe a specialist is better than a generalist, if you want to experience exponentially more potential than someone without help, if you understand you have to have skin in the game to make this work, by scheduling and keeping visits, if you always wondered what else is out there, listen, working with experts isn't free, and it shouldn't be. What you receive will far outweigh management fees, and we don't charge to create plans for you. So who is this not for? Well, it's not for do-it-yourselfers. If you want to enjoy doing your own retirement planning, this isn't for you. If you're not ready or able to make plans, we understand that. I'm highly trained and a sought-after specialist. I see clients from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, period. If you're just kicking tires, not ready for me to spend 10 to 20 hours creating that perfect plan for you, this isn't for you. Anyone okay with just spending all they have because they want to enjoy it while they're alive, this isn't for you. Legacy planning is a very big part of what we do. If you're on that merry-go-round of 5+ people's options to consider, multiple agents, lots of coordination, and if you're fine with that, this isn't for you. We're only looking for a good fit. Here's what to do next. If you'd like to schedule a call with me, simply click the link below. Once you've clicked, a form will populate with your questions about you, your business, and what you'd like to accomplish. Then you'll choose a time on my calendar that works best for you. Once I have your form back, we will jump on a call to discuss our path together. If you'd like to wait, that's fine too. I've had people wait to book because of all the time slots being taken. We're not trying to make this a limited offer or any of that nonsense. We really only have so many slots per day or per week available. If all those slots are taken, you're welcome to call our office and book a future date that's not listed. Let's build something great together. Thank you for your time.